Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of Flick Connection, where in less time than you normally spend scrolling for something to watch every night, I'm going to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in March 2024. So we've actually got another stacked month for Netflix. They're adding a bunch of new and really interesting looking original content throughout the entire month, which means they're actually not adding a whole lot on the first, which is where we'll start with this video, and then at the end of the video, I'll tell you about everything leaving, so you can be sure to catch those titles before they're gone. Thanks to Beam for sponsoring this video, but we'll talk more about them in a little bit. First, let's talk about the best stuff they're adding on March 1st. Where they're adding a new Adam Sandler Netflix original that honestly looks like the most interesting Adam Sandler Netflix original so far. I say Adam Sandler original, I mean he stars in it, but this actually looks like a pretty intense drama. The director actually worked on the Chernobyl series and Breaking Bad, this being one of his first big movies. So do not expect Happy Gilmore in space. In fact, I would imagine this will have a little bit more in common with the Sam Rockwell movie Moon. They're also going to be adding The Disaster Artist, which I think is just a total gem. James Franco did an amazing job in the director's chair, but also just playing this really bizarre character of Tommy Wiseau. If you were into this movie back then, I can tell you it still holds up. Same goes for the 2014 Godzilla. It's not my favorite Godzilla movie out of the entire series, but I can't wait to watch Godzilla Minus One again, or at least get to finish it. This 2014 version just being a pretty decent one out of the entire series, especially out of the ones they've been making lately. The Gift returns to Netflix. This has long been one of my favorite hidden gems to recommend on the platform. Jason Bateman stars in this really tense thriller. You've also got Rebecca Hall. But Joel Edgerton not only steals the show with his character, but he also wrote and directed this movie, and it feels kind of like a modern day Hitchcock flick. It is a little dark and twisted, especially towards the end, but again, one of my favorite hidden gems to recommend. Kind of in a similar category, they're going to be adding Fear, starring Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. Another classic that holds up fairly well. Is Bonnie and Clyde. They're going to be bringing that one back. It comes on and off of Netflix. I just recently re-recommended The Highwaymen with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner, but the original Bonnie and Clyde film is a classic for a reason. I mean, you've got a young Gene Hackman in there, and one of the first uses of squibs. In fact, this movie was, at the time, one of, if not the most violent thing people had ever seen in a movie theater. They're also adding a movie titled Yesterday, which is a must-watch for Beatles fans. It's about a young man who wakes up one day in a world where no one's heard of the Beatles, and he's able to start performing Beatles songs, passing them off as his own. This was actually directed by Danny Boyle, who's most famous for movies like Slumdog Millionaire, Trainspotting, The Beach, and 28 Days Later. This being one of his more softer, heartwarming movies. They're also adding Voyagers, which isn't one I necessarily recommend. It's kind of aimed at a younger audience, kind of a tween audience, but for that audience, it's kind of a cool space exploration movie. Some other hits include 21 Bridges, one of Chadwick Boseman's last flicks. They're also adding two throwback Denzel Washington flicks with Devil in a Blue Dress and The Great Debaters. For some comedies, they're adding Step Brothers. A stupid movie, yes, but a just insanely rewatchable one if you're into that brand of humor like I am.
What are you doing?
I'm burying you.
I'm alive! I'm alive! We're waking the neighbors!
Same goes for Dumb and Dumber, which I don't know that I've ever seen available on Netflix. It's not like most of us don't know that movie by heart by now, though.
Hey, guys. Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
And then for some more comedy, they're actually adding the Jamie Foxx Show seasons 1 through 5. This was a sitcom he did in the mid-90s, and they'll be adding an even more famous sitcom starring a black comedian from the mid-90s, but we'll get to that in a minute. They're also going to be adding season 7 of Somebody Feed Phil. But before I tell you about everything else they're adding in March and everything leaving, I want to tell you about how today's sponsor, Beam, has really helped me get some better sleep. Dream by Beam is actually a luxurious drink blend filled with the highest quality sleep promoting ingredients. It's a delicious powder you mix with a little bit of warm milk about 30 minutes to an hour before bed. I like to mix mine up about halfway through my last movie of the day. Now personally, I tend to have no trouble falling asleep, but I often wake up after 4 a.m. several times and can have a lot of trouble getting back to sleep. It's been that way for well over a year now, and I think it's just part of getting older. Dream has helped me stay asleep. Even at times when I do wake up after 4 a.m., I fall right back to sleep, whereas I was getting used to just falling half asleep and not really getting a good night's rest. So far, I've been amazed that Dream has not made me feel drowsy in the morning whatsoever, like not even a little bit. It also doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like it's putting me to sleep, but it's definitely giving me a nudge to help me stay asleep, helping me wake up way more rested than I was before taking Dream. And it tastes good. It's got a cinnamon chocolate flavor. It's almost like having a little cup of hot cocoa before bed at night. They have a CBD version and a non-CBD version. I'm taking the non-CBD version. They also have a variety of flavors, but the original is plenty delicious for me. And right now, when my viewers use the link in the description or just go to shopbeam.com/flick and use my code FLICK, you can save up to 35% off your first order with Beam. This stuff's also low calorie, vegan friendly, keto friendly, and really easy to incorporate into your routine. So again, to get that discount, use my link, it's in the video description, or just go to shopbeam.com/flick and use my code FLICK to get up to 35% off. It's a great way to get some better sleep and a great deal, but speaking of great stuff, let's talk about everything else Netflix is adding in March. On the 3rd, they're having a huge live sports events for tennis fans. It's called the Netflix Slam. It'll be broadcast in English and Spanish from Las Vegas and could be a pretty cool live sporting event even if you're not into tennis. Hopefully we get to see some more live sports from Netflix in the future. On the 5th, they add the program Cults, Cons, and Kidnapping. This will be a true crime limited series. They often do great with those. This looks like one I'll be watching, even though it does sound pretty twisted. For some more sports, on the 6th, they're adding Full Swing Season 2. This was a hit series that looked inside the PGA. I know golf fans went nuts for Season 1. Season 2 should be just as good. And then one of the original projects I'm personally very excited for is The Gentleman Season 1. Yes, this is a spin-off of the Guy Ritchie movie. The series was also written and co-directed by Guy Ritchie. I doubt he had a huge hand in the production of every episode, but still, I loved that movie and I'm excited to see Guy Ritchie pumping out a new movie every year, plus this series. It's good stuff. Then on the 8th, they're adding what is probably the biggest release for the month, or at least the thing Netflix is the most hyped for. It's titled Damsel, which looks like an epic fantasy story starring Millie Bobby Brown. This does look like it's targeted at a younger audience, but still looks like something very accessible for adults, and looks like a pretty epic fantasy movie. So fans of her, this is going to be a must-watch, but even if you're just into that genre, Damsel looks pretty decent, especially for a Netflix original aimed at a younger audience. March 12th adds Turning Point, The Bomb, and the Cold War, a limited series about the Cold War. Should be interesting for someone in my demo. And then something not interesting for someone in my demo is Irish Wish, the latest Lindsay Lohan movie. Yep, she's still alive. I had no idea. Then on March 17th, they're adding 3 new 30 for 30 series. So sports fans, you're kind of getting your fill on Netflix this month. A not-so-live event is going to be Brian Simpson live at the Comedy Mothership. This is a pre-recorded comedy special, but the first one filmed at Joe Rogan's Comedy Mothership in Austin. Should be a good time. And then the same day, they're bringing back one of my favorite series from recent memory, Physical 100. This is from South Korea and is an awesome physical challenge show. Season 1 is currently available and I loved it. They didn't waste any time. There's a ton of action in this show. I mean, there's fighting and all sorts of extreme physical challenges, and they weed out a lot of people in this. It's very much like Squid Game, but instead of pretending to kill people, they're actually getting eliminated in a pretty brutal fashion, and it is really entertaining to watch. And it's time for Halloween in March, which, yes, it's a new thing, but they're adding 2 horror movies worth talking about this month. The first being Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. This is kind of a wild one. You got a bunch of young folks having essentially a hurricane party, and they decide to play a murder mystery game when someone actually ends up dead. So there's nothing really supernatural here. It's really just fear-based in this dark house, very much like an old-fashioned murder mystery, but with a modern twist that I thought was actually pretty excellent. The movie is fairly slow-paced, and I think probably didn't deliver on a lot of expectations, but still was surprising. Lee Pace is exceptional in this movie. I've liked him and stuff over the years, and I've really enjoyed his character. Pete Davidson also stars in this a little bit, but I would say even people that specifically don't like Pete Davidson, I think there's still enough to like with Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And then the other horror flick is called There's Something in the Barn, a straight up horror comedy where garden gnomes come to life and start killing people. I have not seen that one in particular, but as far as horror comedies go, it should be pretty decent. Then if there's not enough bodies for you, on the 21st, they're going to be adding a new series from the creators of Game of Thrones titled 3 Body Problem.
Christ, another countdown.
Has anyone else seen it?
Now, Netflix made a big deal with those guys in order to bring them over as Game of Thrones was wrapping up. Now, this is actually an adaptation of one of the most famous sci-fi novels to ever come out of China. It actually depicts past, present, and future on Earth as we begin to encounter this alien civilization. There's a good chance this could be an amazing series. There's also a good chance they could totally blow it with this one. But from everything I've seen so far, I'm definitely excited to watch 3 Body Problem in March. And then for some more stand-up comedy, they're adding one from one of the most legendary guys to ever do it, Dave Attell, one of the greatest comics of all time. He's filthy, he's irreverent, and really, really good at what he does. It's been a long time since I've seen one of his specials, so I've got my calendar marked for this one. Is It Cake comes back for season 3. If you're not tired of that show yet, I like it. I think it's kind of cool, but the novelty maybe wore off after season 2 for me. And then an interesting one, they're actually doing a remake of one of my favorite flicks from the 1950s, Wages of Fear. Now, the original involved some guys transporting nitroglycerin across this bumpy road, and the way it was filmed and everything just builds tension in an amazing way. Recently deceased legendary director William Friedkin also directed a remake of this movie titled Sorcerer, which is excellent as well, but this new remake looks like a French Netflix original movie. It actually stars one of the guys from Lost Bullet, a movie I've highly recommended here, but the movie itself looks like it could be kind of mediocre. You know, kind of a basic-ass action movie. The type I don't really like, but loving the original so much, I'm definitely going to give it a shot, and fingers crossed, it's halfway decent. On the 30th, they're adding the entire series of Vikings, which is great because they've had the spin-off Vikings Valhalla as a Netflix original for a while, so to get the original series from the History Channel only makes sense. In fact, they kind of belong on Netflix forever now, in my opinion. A really badass series if you never saw it. And then finally on March 31st, they're still adding quite a lot, including Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, all 4 original Hunger Games movies, and Martin, Season 1 through 5. I know that series has some years on it now, but it was such a hit then, I imagine it's going to make it into the top 10 series on Netflix when it releases on the 31st. But here is everything leaving through the month of March. If you're new to the channel, welcome, but the date listed is the date it is gone, which means you can't watch it on that date. You gotta watch it sooner, so be sure to mark your calendar. Don't forget the full list of all the titles we just discussed can be found in the top pinned comment down below. If you got some good recommendations, be sure to give the video a like. It really does help the algorithm recommend this to more people. And thanks to Beam for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out their link in the description below so you can start getting some better sleep. But I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Netflix episode, and you will see me on the next one.